I'm going to go over some ink techniques on using a Sharpie and creating patterns and values with inks for our Zentangle. The first thing I want to go over is this visual rubric. We make these so you guys can see where you're at in regards to the rubric when it comes to technique. So this is a recreation of the same pattern using the same pen in 4 different grade levels. So this is the A for really professional, excellent technique. This is the B, this is the C, and this is the F. Now each of these is a recreation of the same pattern. So I'm doing these curved stripes. Every other stripe is white, and then in every other stripe, it's little stripes and then circles filling up those patterns. The more complex and interesting your patterns are in your Zentangle, the more complex and interesting your overall Zentangle is going to be, and the more pleasing it will be to look at. An A in ink technique has smooth lines. The lines end and begin where they're supposed to. They don't hang off the edge or, in too soon. There are no bleed lines where the ink bled when the artist was making lines. The patterns and spacing are all equal and smooth and measured out. It's not all random and willy-nilly. When you are creating your own practice patterns in your sketchbook, I want you to frequently look back at the visual rubric and ask yourself, where am I in regards to technique? And if you are somewhere down here, ask yourself, what do you need to do to get somewhere up here? If you want more specific feedback, you can do a few patterns, send me a picture of them, and I will let you know how you're doing as far as technique goes starting then. So when you are creating patterns in ink, we are going to use the ultra fine point Sharpie. Now you can use micron tech pens if you have them. Don't run out and go get them if you don't. You need the ultra fine point Sharpie. This is the felt tip pen, the small tip. It is not one of these, okay? These are kind of your normal household Sharpies. Do not do your whole Zentangle in this. That would be an automatic F. This is what we're going to work in. I'm going to show you how to use these with professional technique today. Let me get a little closer. So this is a felt tip pen, which means the ink comes out of a little piece of felt at the very tip of the pen. If you are making a mark on a paper and you freeze and hold your pen still on that paper, it's going to make a bleed dot. These are bad. We do not want these on our lines. We want to have lines that are smooth. So in order to do that, you need to move your pen at one solid speed. To be good at this, you need to know where your line is going before you start making your line and where it's going to end. You also need to have clean corners, which means where you have a point where 2 lines meet, they need to actually meet at that point. Your corner should not look like this, shouldn't look like that, shouldn't look like this, shouldn't look like any of those. A corner should be a corner. This kind of junky technique will detract from your overall Zentangle. When you are making straight lines, use your ruler. Now everyone should have one, but if you don't have an exact ruler with measurements on it, any straight edge will work to help you create straight lines. Everyone gets a school ID. That's a really great plastic straight edge that you can use, a little 3-inch ID card. So that's not the best rectangle in the world, but it'll work for our purposes. Now, there are certain patterns that you'll want to draw in pencil first. Patterns with organic lines that you can't really use a ruler for. You want to draw out in pencil first so you can lay them out evenly. So I'm working on getting these lines equal distance apart. Same kind of curve of every line in that box. Then I'm going to practice making smooth ink lines by tracing those lines. I don't want to create bleed dots and I don't want them to be shaky, so I'm going to start and stop an entire line at once. I don't want to start and stop in the middle. Got a little off my pencil there, but that's okay. So you have smooth lines. I'm a little shaky today. If this has really high definition, you might be able to see my hand shake. But that's okay. Even if you have shaky hands, you can still create strong ink technique. If I wanted to freehand this pattern without drawing it out first in pencil, so I can make mistakes. See, also when I freehanded my box, the corners went to crap. See, it's harder to keep it consistent. Even when I know what I'm doing, even me as the teacher. Oh, geez. Things don't stay as consistent if I don't measure it out first. I want you to create interesting and unique patterns, Zentangle patterns in your sketchbook. You can Google Zentangle patterns and it will give you a ton of different options to make strong technique. I'm going to show you 2 examples of Zentangles. This first one has excellent ink technique, okay? Some of the patterns almost look printed. Get that refocused. This Zentangle also has really unique and interesting patterns. The patterns are complicated, more than just simple stripes. The patterns are unique. It's squiggly stripes filled with polka dots and these swirly circles instead of just, stripes back and forth. These stripes all have different variety throughout them. The more complicated you can make your patterns, the more visually interesting your Zentangle is going to be. But you can tell this person's still human. There are some mistakes in this pattern. Some of those areas are smaller. But overall, this is an excellent Zentangle. Pardon the bell. This is an excellent Zentangle with excellent strong ink technique. This is a very poorly done Zentangle with terrible ink technique. Nothing is measured. Nothing is consistent. A ruler, looks like this kid was allergic to the ruler. These huge areas of black filled in are super ugly. Do not put that on yours. All the patterns are not measured. They're not consistent. There are bleed dots on the lines. The dots don't end where they're supposed to. Both of these Zentangles were created with the same process, but one is much more pleasing and visually interesting to look at than the other. One is an A and one is a redo this assignment because you didn't even try. Practice ink technique, practice smooth lines, practice creating measured out patterns in your sketchbook. Create a range of value. When you are all done, photograph this ink technique, upload it to your digital sketchbook, and turn it in.